What really happened to the tomb of Jesus? Was it empty after the resurrection, or is there evidence that it was sealed shut? And what about those mysterious women who visited the tomb? What did they actually see when they arrived at the tomb? Did they really see an angel rolling away the stone? Or could there be another explanation for this seemingly miraculous event? It's me, and you're watching this channel. Join me as we look at some fascinating historical facts about the tomb of Jesus. The accounts of the discovery of the empty tomb in the four Gospels are brief, but have inspired centuries of paintings and have been debated by scholars and theologians for hundreds of years. But what did the original writings actually say? Let's take a closer look. After the crucifixion of Jesus, his body was placed in a tomb that was then sealed with a stone. The next day, which was the Jewish day of rest, a large number of women made their way to the tomb, bringing spices for anointing the body of Jesus. When they arrived, they found the stone rolled away from the entrance. Although Matthew's Gospel doesn't mention women arriving at the tomb, both Mark and Luke say that Mary Magdalene and the other women were deeply troubled when they saw that the stone had been moved. But they were greatly astonished and afraid. And Luke goes into more detail. He says that two men in dazzling clothes stood where the stone had been. And they said to the women, "Why are you looking for the living one among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still with you, that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and crucified, and that he would rise again on the third day." John's Gospel also mentions Mary Magdalene going to the tomb early in the morning with some other women. But he doesn't say anything about the stone being rolled away or any other details of the event. And it's important to note that John was present at the tomb when Jesus' body was taken out for burial, and then again when his body wasn't there. So why doesn't he mention the stone being moved? Some believe John deliberately omitted these details to make it harder for skeptics to claim the story of the empty tomb was fabricated. So if the Gospels don't agree on what happened, can we get to the bottom of this and find out what really happened to the tomb of Jesus? Well, let's talk about what we know for certain. We know that the Romans generally didn't bother sealing the tombs of criminals who had been crucified. However, as Jesus was a revered rabbi, his followers may have wanted to honor his body by burying him according to Jewish tradition. This was quite costly and was normally reserved for the wealthy. So it suggests that many of Jesus' followers felt he was much more than just a criminal. They believed he was the Messiah, the Son of God, but who ordered the tomb to be sealed. The Jewish leaders of the time insisted on the tomb being sealed with a large stone to prevent the body from being stolen and used as an excuse to say the Messiah had risen. So although the Gospel of John says Joseph of Arimathea asked for Jesus' body and then wrapped it in a linen cloth and laid it in a tomb that was cut into the hillside, it was probably the chief priests who ordered the stone to be sealed across the entrance. But why did they go to such lengths? If the rumors spread that the disciples stole the body, it would reflect badly on the chief priests, the Pharisees, and all of the Sanhedrin. They wanted everyone to know that Jesus' death was genuine and that his body was resting in a sealed tomb. But what about the women? Why did they go to the tomb? At that time, it was customary for the bodies of executed criminals to be left in the tombs for 3 days before being buried. It was believed that this allowed the soul to leave the body. But as Jesus had been placed in the tomb before sunset on the day he died, the disciples believed they needed to anoint his body before the Jewish Sabbath began. But what did they really see? What does the word empty mean in the context of the Gospels? It could mean the tomb was physically empty. Or it could mean that Jesus was no longer bound to death and was spiritually empty, or both. We don't know exactly what the women expected to see, but they had brought spices to anoint his body, so they clearly expected his physical presence to be there. What's interesting is that none of the Gospels state that the women actually looked inside the tomb. In fact, they don't even say they went inside the tomb. They simply say that they approached it and saw that the stone had been rolled away. Perhaps they didn't need to go inside to realize the body was missing. After all, they had seen Jesus die, and his followers knew that he had claimed to rise from the dead 3 days later. Maybe they went to the tomb expecting to find an empty space, but instead they found a stone blocking the entrance. If we apply some common sense to this scenario, perhaps the women had brought the stone there themselves and then pretended to be shocked when they saw it blocking the entrance. There are several reasons for this. First, the women would have known that the tomb was sealed with a stone, and it seems unlikely that they would have gone to so much trouble to move the stone only to come back and find it in the same place. Second, if they really believed the stone was there to stop someone from stealing the body, why didn't they try to move it? The women were clearly strong-willed individuals who weren't afraid of offending the Jewish authorities. Yet, they couldn't move a single stone. Third, when Mary Magdalene later told the disciples that she had seen angels, they didn't believe her. Why wouldn't they believe what she was saying? Perhaps because they knew she was lying, but why would the women lie? It may be because they wanted to be the first to witness the risen Christ. Although the Gospels make it clear that the first person to see the risen Jesus was Mary Magdalene, in their minds, it may have been better for someone else to have witnessed the empty tomb. But what does this tell us about what really happened to the tomb of Jesus? Well, there are two distinct possibilities. The first is that the tomb was empty and the stone was moved by someone who was looking after the body of Jesus. Perhaps Joseph of Arimathea or Nicodemus. The second possibility is that the stone was never moved, and the women either didn't go inside the tomb or did, and see anything because they were too scared. One thing is for sure, though the Gospels are very vague about what exactly happened and what the women really saw. This has led people to conclude that the stories of the empty tomb were added to the Gospels after the resurrection to prove that Jesus was who he said he was. However, it may simply be because those who wrote the Gospels didn't consider the details to be important. And what do you think? What really happened to the tomb of Jesus? Did the women move the stone themselves and then pretend to be shocked when they saw it? Or was the tomb truly empty? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, don't forget to subscribe if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching,